I'm Selena Wang, and for Emily Chang, this is the best of Bloomberg Technology, where we bring you all of our top interviews from this week in tech. Coming up, Apple unveils a faster iPhone XS, a bigger XS Max, and a cheaper XR, but all at luxury prices. Will they kickstart more growth for the first trillion-dollar tech giant? Well, some investors aren't convinced. Plus, coffee on the run. How convenience and tech is playing into Starbucks' global strategy. We hear from the company CEO. And it's the new start of an era for Alibaba. Jack Ma announces his succession plan as he shifts his focus to philanthropy and education. But a big week for Apple as the company unveiled its new iPhone strategy, tripling down on its upgrade to the iPhone X. The new models are named the iPhone XS, a larger version called the iPhone XS Max, plus a new entry-level version, the iPhone XR. Bloomberg Technology's Mark Gurman snagged a first look at the handsets just after Apple's announcement.
This is the iPhone XS. Looks just like an iPhone X as expected, but some of the new enhancements inside include an upgraded camera, both on the hardware and the software side, in addition to a faster A12 processor, so it's going to be quite a bit speedier than last year's model. Starts at the same price, has some of these new wallpapers. You can press down on it. Overall, it's just like an iPhone X. Face ID, same general design, features, stainless steel casing. The big difference is that there's actually a bigger version now known as the XS Max, which starts at $1,050 with a 6.5-inch screen. This one, the XS, still has the same 5.8-inch screen. And there's also the iPhone XR with a 6.1-inch screen, but aluminum around the sides instead of the stainless steel on this one. And this is the iPhone XS Max. This is the bigger one with a 6.5-inch screen. That makes it quite a bit bigger than the iPhone X and XS and all past iPhone models. And the reason they're calling it the Max is because it's quite a bit bigger than the Plus screen size as well. So at 6.5 inches, the overall phone, because the edge screen is the same size as, let's say, a 7 or an 8 Plus, but you have that much more screen real estate, about an inch more diagonally, and you can just see that websites and the interface is much bigger. If you go side by side, sort of like an iPad where you have some of your content on one side and the other content on the other side. Same camera, same chip system you have going on this one as you have going on with the iPhone XS as well. This one is 1050, comes in this white and silver color, the space gray, sort of darker color, as well as a new gold finish. This is the silver one. So that's the iPhone XS. It goes on sale September 21st in 2 sizes. And this is the lower cost one. This is the iPhone XR. It's a direct replacement for the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus from last year. $750, so it's sort of sandwiched in between on the pricing scale as well. 6.1-inch screen. The bezels are slightly thicker than they are on the iPhone XS and XS Max. It's an LCD screen, but to be honest, at first glance, it looks quite a bit similar. A little bit thicker than those devices. You have the metal edges instead of the stainless steel. This is a way for Apple to bring in the design with Face ID and No Home button to more people, obviously because of the price, but it also comes in several new colors. It sort of looks like an iPhone 8 from the back, right here with the glass back and the single lens camera and the LED flash below it and sort of the metal edges, but on the front it really looks like an iPhone X because of the edge-to-edge screen with Face ID. Mark Gurman for Bloomberg News in Cupertino.
Investors seem mixed on the triple phone strategy, but were surprised by the new Apple Watch Series 4. It has more health features than ever before, becoming what Apple says is the first over-the-counter ECG reader, and it's been approved by the FDA. Creative Strategies analyst Carolina Milanese shared her thoughts after the announcement.
I think that the redesign and how just the face is now different because the complications can be richer and the experience is a bit more powerful, but it can be also simple. I think might get some people excited. I think the smart idea to keep the third generation in the portfolio at $279. If people that tried it but then are like, maybe it's not for me yet, or people that have been waiting, that is a much more affordable kind of dip your toes in the water move. And then I think obviously the health side of things is important. You know, how long is it going to be before we can actually get our insurance to pay for it?
So, you know, I know a lot of people who got the first generation of the Apple Watch, wore it for a few weeks and just tossed it aside because they felt they didn't need it. They had their phone. Can those people be convinced that this is enough to have a completely different experience?
I think I always said from the very beginning that you need to put some time into the watch to really understand what the watch can do for you.
It does take an investment.
It does.
Of time
Absolutely.
and energy.
Yes, it does.
Not everyone has.
No, but we are at a time where people are trying to disconnect from the phone, and I think the watch helps you because it, you know, if you're a control freak like I am, I want to know what's going on, but I don't want to get sucked into my phone. You know, you look at one tweet and then 40 minutes later you're still looking at your screen. I think watch helps you with that and is a good cutting the cord but still being connected.
So how would you evaluate the breadth of the phones that Apple has now, all the way down to the iPhone 7 in that $400 range, up to the XS Max for $1,100? How well do you think this positions Apple going into the holiday season?
I think it's the strong lineup for Apple for sure. Of course, different countries have different price points, and $450 for an iPhone 7 is not cheap in India.
Right.
But I think that is the first time that you have that breadth from $450 to $1,100 for the basic models, and a little bit of everything from a form factor perspective as well. Last year when the 10 came out, people appreciated more screen, but if you were on a Plus model before, it did feel strange in your hand. You missed that larger form factor, which is, I think, what the Max will address this year. And then you have the DR, that is a new attempt that Apple is taking to the more affordable price point, and I think a smart one too.
Do you think the XR, though, could cannibalize sales of some of the higher-end phones?
Well, Apple always says that as long as they buy Apple, they don't really mind. I think it's quite differentiated from a standpoint of feature set and the colors itself, so that consumers will go towards one or the other. But I think what is important is that it doesn't matter which one of the 10 you buy. Apple is selling you the next generation experience when it comes to iPhone. So they'll be happy either one.
So what do you think are the biggest risks ahead for Apple?
What are
the roadblocks? I mean, we didn't see shares react particularly well. They don't always have much of a reaction at all on these product announcement days. But, the company's already at $1 trillion. They're already on top of the world. Is up the only way to go, or could there be another direction? Well,
I think that there's obviously a lot of attention on their services side, and this is what else they've done today with the different models. The larger screens. Whenever we're going to see the TV service, obviously play to that, and maybe the other part of what people are paying attention is China and the economic and the political situation with China. But you saw today how much China means to Apple, and the fact that they came out with a dual SIM model that has 2 physical SIMs when the rest of the world will have an eSIM.
If these tariffs do materialize on the $200 billion, Apple's already said prices will go up. There could be an additional set of tariffs on $267 billion more worth of goods. How much is that going to hurt Apple?
Well, it's going to hurt Apple more than it would Samsung, which is the other big name, right, in the U.S. market for smartphone, because they don't have to get caught into this U.S. versus China battle. But there are other ways. First of all, not always Apple will have to pass on those tariffs to the final consumers. But it's not as simple as saying, bring it all in America and build it here, because the cost will be even higher.
All right, Carolina Milanesi, Creative Strategies. Great to have you back
Pleasure.
Here on the show. Thanks for sharing your perspective. All right, well, investors, as we discussed, seem sort of unconvinced about this new suite of iPhones and Apple Watches. Shares finished the session 1.24% lower, and we're mostly down throughout the day here at the Steve Jobs Theater. For more on this, we're joined on the phone by Cross Research Managing Director Shannon Cross. So Shannon, why do you think the shares reacted this way?
Well, look, I think, the stock has been relatively strong through, since earnings. And I think that a lot of what they announced was sort of in line with people's expectations. I do think that there'll be some sort of digesting of what it means from an ASP perspective from what they announced. Basically, based on our estimates, we think that there's probably about a 10% potential for a 10% year-over-year increase in ASP, which is significant given, how ASPs increased this prior year. So, they're definitely mix shifting up. And whereas there was a lot of questions about their ability to do it last year when they launched the iPhone 10, I think at this point they have significant experience to know what the market will take and will absorb. So I feel much more confident with the pricing moves that they made today.
ASP, the average selling price of the iPhone, $724 last quarter. There's an expectation it could go up to potentially as high as $793. We spoke to Pierre Ferragu of New Street Research. They've got the lone sell rating on Apple. And his view is that the iPhone 10 has done so well so far that there's not a lot of room for more upgrades at this point, and it means that next year, in their view, will be a disappointment. What do you think about that theory?
Well, I think, one of the things that's interesting from an Apple perspective is that their installed base has grown double digits the last several years on an annual basis. So they've got a significantly large installed base with which to try to target. I think the $749 phone will be very attractive to a large number of those players. But, based on our research and conversations with people, clearly China likes the newest and greatest and big. So, that will help with the Max. I think that, again, there's a group of people who are on this sort of every year cycle that will go out and buy the latest one. So I'm not thinking that, they sort of, exhausted the potential pool of iPhone 10 purchasers with what they did last year. Clearly, it surprised, I think, both them and the street in terms of, how iPhone 10 didn't fall off. But I think that also gives them a lot of support to the fact that, they could go to, almost $1,100 for the high-end phone. And, I think they'll get it. Will it be a huge percentage of sales? No, maybe not necessarily, but I think the combination of the two OLED devices will sell very well.
And still ahead on the best of Bloomberg technology, coffee to go. Starbucks looks to get back in the delivery game with a new partner. We'll hear from the company CEO next. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. You can listen on the Bloomberg app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on SiriusXM. This is Bloomberg. This is the best of Bloomberg technology. I'm Selena Wang. Starbucks is giving delivery service in the U.S. another chance. The world's largest chain of coffee shops is teaming up to test delivery in more than 100 locations in the Miami area. Now, several years ago, Starbucks tested delivery service in Seattle with Postmates. Starbucks CEO Tagvin Johnson joined Bloomberg at the Global Climate Action Summit to discuss how convenience is playing a role in the company's global strategy.
Sustainability has been a pillar of Starbucks' social impact agenda for years, starting with sustainability of coffee and making it the first sustainable agricultural product, to greener cups, to LEED certified stores. And so today we're announcing a new greener store framework where we're going beyond the store design into how we operate the store. So it has to do with renewable energy, buying renewable energy credits so that all energy in Starbucks stores is driven renewable. It's about water stewardship and ensuring we're being thoughtful about water and water waste. It's about managing waste. And so we have a complete program that we've put together with our partners that we're announcing today that will help make us a greener, more sustainable company.
Will you install solar on the stores?
No, what we do is we buy renewable energy credits that basically ensure that we are funding and supporting the growth of renewable energy sources to fund the energy consumed in our stores. But we do work to ensure that all the equipment in our stores consumes is the minimal amount of power necessary, and that's why we embrace sort of LEED certified store concepts. And so a lot of innovation in the store, and then a lot of commitment to things like renewable energy and water and waste reduction as we operate the store.
Now, you get a lot of feedback from coffee farmers around the world. By one estimate, by 2025, we're going to lose half the world's area deemed suitable for growing coffee. What are farmers telling you about how climate change is affecting them, and how do you see the global coffee crop evolving over time, with a sustainable future?
Well, we source coffee from over 300,000 different coffee farms around the world. And so we have farmer support centers in every geography that we source coffee from, and we have agronomists that work on innovation to really address some of these challenges. But what we're hearing from farmers is with global warming, it has created the manifestation of coffee rust, a disease that gets on the leaves of coffee trees and kills them. And so our agronomists have worked to create a hybrid rust-resistant coffee tree that we give to coffee farmers. And then we work with coffee farmers to develop the best practices on how to get the best quality of coffee and the best yield from their coffee. And we do that from farmer support centers, and we basically open source all of that information with coffee farmers around the world.
Given the commitment that you have to staving off climate change, what's been your reaction to the administration's actions? I mean, even just this week, the rollback on methane protections, and going all the way back to pulling out of Paris.
Well, for us, sustainability has been a pillar of our social impact agenda for more than a decade, and really goes back to the sort of the origin and the foundation of the company, and our belief that the pursuit of profit is not in direct conflict with the pursuit of doing good. And in the case of sustainability, whether it's coffee, greener cups, greener stores, that's good for business. And so we stay focused on what Starbucks does and as well, which is let's create a great experience in our stores, and let's serve some of the world's best coffees from around the world.
2020 will be the year of the final straw. You have pledged to eliminate plastic straws, and I know that you've been planning for years to do so, but it has not been easy. What have been the biggest challenges of getting there, reaching that goal?
Well, this is really a challenge of innovation, and we do that by working not only within Starbucks, with many partners outside of Starbucks, to figure out how to innovate around things like the strawless lids that we have introduced here in the United States and are now being deployed around the world. In addition to the strawless lids, it's coming up with new designs of straws that are either compostable or biodegradable.
What are they going to be made of, and who will supply them?
Well, some are made from paper, and some are made of compostable plastics. And so there's innovators and supply chain that is being built to be able to supply the volume of straws that not only Starbucks customers use, but that are used in many other food and beverage establishments.
So some would say the straws are just a drop in the bucket in terms of the amount of plastic that is going into the ecosystem. What else can you do to push the needle?
Well, the other things we do is really work with local government to ensure they have recycling capabilities. And the more that we're focused on getting our recyclable cups and recyclable plastics into the appropriate recycling system in these local communities, we can make a big difference there as well. So you have to really focus this on a variety of domains, and that's what we're doing.
That was Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson. And we'll have more from the Global Climate Action Summit next, where we hear from San Francisco Mayor London Breed. And a little later in the show, cannabis stocks are heating up, fueled by upcoming recreational sales in Canada and a growing U.S. market. We'll take a look at the tech behind the drugs regulation. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the best of Bloomberg Technology. I'm Selena Wang. Since London Breed was sworn in as the 45th mayor of San Francisco in July, she's become vocal on clean energy initiatives. She spoke to Emily Chang at the Global Climate Action Summit about the city's commitment to reducing waste and its 100% renewable energy target.
We are well on our way to 100% renewable energy by 2030. We're committed to that. We launched our Clean Power SF program with over 100,000 customers already enrolled in the program. And I'm excited about, just really getting to a place where we can produce zero waste and coming up with creative solutions like green bonds, which helps with our infrastructure. We have the technology to do amazing things, and we should use it. And just because someone says that it's not possible doesn't mean that we don't roll up our sleeves and do everything we can to try.
This is a low-lying city. What's the plan to fight the rising seas?
And so right now, I'm glad you asked that. We actually have an initiative on the ballot for our seawall. Our seawall, which is really protecting us from sea level rise. It's an over $1 billion project. We have a bond on the ballot where we're raising money so that people can understand that the things that we don't see are sometimes more important than the things that we do. This is the difference between protecting us when a big earthquake comes or anything else for that nature. So we are moving forward to provide protections to our seawall.
Were you disappointed in the president's decision, the stance, and pulling out of Paris?
Everyone, I think, who cares about the future of our planet had to be disappointed. But what that has done is inspired people from all over the world to come together for this global climate action summit to not just talk about what we want to do, but to actually put words into deeds and get things done.
What's the strategy for accelerating the use of electric cars in the city?
So we have basically provided additional stations for charging stations here in San Francisco. The new purchase of all of our vehicles are going to be clean energy vehicles. We put forth legislation a couple of years ago to make that commitment because there are options out there that we can use to get to a 100% clean fleet here in San Francisco for all of our city vehicles, including our dump trucks, our police vehicles, all of those things. We're headed in the right direction.
Where is the city on the testing of self-driving cars?
So the testing of self-driving cars is a little complicated. We are trying to work with the industry on responsible practices. What we are most concerned about is safety. We want to make sure that, people don't get hurt. And so we're working with this industry to provide safe testing and regulations that are appropriate to keep people safe.
San Francisco just passed some surprisingly strict regulations on scooters, choosing 2 companies to give permits to. Is that just the way it is, or do you think these regulations could loosen in the future to allow other companies to participate?
I think what happened when the scooters just start showing up all over the sidewalks in San Francisco a couple of months ago, people were like, well, what do we do with this? And so now, really trying to see whether or not this can be something that can work in San Francisco. I mean, frankly, I'm excited about the scooters, especially when you wear dresses. You can just hop on a scooter and go from one block to the next. But we also, again, safety is a #1 option. People are riding on sidewalks, narrow sidewalks where people are walking. That's really a problem. So I think our goal is to make sure that people are using them safely, that we test this to see how it works. But I think this could be a great addition to San Francisco.
There are some other policies that some in the tech community might view as tech unfriendly. The gross receipts tax, the proposed ban on office cafeterias. Are you taking on big business?
I think part of what I believe as mayor is that big business definitely has to pay their fair share in helping, San Francisco with all the challenges that exist. But I think there's a fine line between helping and being responsible and just overburdening the business community with things that drive them away. I want to make sure that our strong economy continues in San Francisco. So I want to make sure that we have balanced and fair regulations, and that definitely will take time.
Do you think the tech community needs to do more when it comes to the homelessness situation, when it comes to being a good city citizen, if you will?
So I think that we need more, of course. But the flip side of that is the people that we have who sadly are homeless on our streets are struggling with drug addiction and mental illness. We have gotten people into our navigation centers, which are 24-hour shelters that helps people into permanent supportive housing, and they have not always stayed in that housing. They would get in there one day, be gone the next, and it is continuing to be a challenge. It's why I'm pushing for some reforms to our mental health conservatorship system. It's also why I'm pushing for safe injection sites, things that are innovative that are going to hopefully get us to a better place. It's not going to completely solve the problem because we know people are struggling, but we have to do more and we have to do something different.
That was San Francisco Mayor London Breed. And still ahead, the changing of the guard at Alibaba. Jack Ma sets out his plan to step away from the e-commerce giant. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology and be sure to follow our global breaking news network at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the Best of Bloomberg Technology. I'm Selena Wang. Another high-ranking Tesla executive is leaving the company. That's according to sources. Justin McAnear, vice president of worldwide finance and operation, is parting ways with electric car maker. And we're also now getting news of longer delivery response times for cars. Now, this was posted on Twitter. Due to a large increase in vehicle delivery volume in North America, Tesla customers may experience longer response times. Resolving this is our top priority. We spoke with Tigris Financial Partners Chief Investment Officer Ivan Feinseth and Bloomberg Businessweek's Max Chafkin.
My supposition, he's talking about basically people requesting service on their cars, and what's happening now is Tesla, as we've been talking about for months, is in the middle of a sprint to get as many cars manufactured and then delivered to customers as possible, and so feels like they're having some kind of normal customer service snafu. So I don't know. Until we learn more, I wouldn't read too much into it. Although I definitely want to start looking at what customers are saying, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet.
So perhaps more serious, Ivan, is this continued executive turnover, and now specifically in the finance department, we had the chief accounting officer leave, as well as other finance executives, and now yet another. How concerning is it that Tesla can't keep people in these very important positions as this company is working towards profitability?
Well, it's never good to have turnover, especially of key executives. However, I do believe there's a long line of people who would love to work at Tesla. I don't think they are going to have a hard time replacing anybody that's leaving any of these positions. The opportunity to still get in on what is the ground floor of a company that is, making huge changes to the automobile industry, and that is very appealing to people who are in Silicon Valley, and a lot of companies do have high turnover. People in Silicon Valley tend to look for the next big opportunity. So the turnover is never good, but I think there's opportunity to fill the positions pretty easily.
Well, and this is extremely high turnover. Of course, we are focused on it. Max, we've got an entire Bloomberg team, trying to talk to current and former Tesla employees. What are employees leaving? What are they saying?
I mean, I think what's happening now, what's been happening for the past few weeks, I would think would be extremely demotivating to many Tesla employees. I mean, you have people who have been basically working around the clock. I mean, including Elon Musk, at least during some days. And while that's going on, you have this kind of whole drama that feels like something close to self-sabotage. So while I think that Ivan's right that, sure, they're going to be able to hire people. This is a company, obviously, with a lot of growth potential ahead of it. There is the problem of when you have a lot of turnover, it saps productivity. And when you have these kind of self-inflicted wounds, these distractions, that also saps productivity. And this is a company that can't really afford that right now. They are trying to work as fast as they can to get these cars out the door.
Meantime, Ivan, we heard Gwen Shotwell, the COO of SpaceX, Elon's other company, comment on what she believes Elon to be as capable and lucid as he's ever been. She wishes people wouldn't focus on the trivialities. What to you, as someone who is analyzing this company, what are the trivialities, and what of all the news that has made headlines in the last several weeks, what matters? What matters when it comes to your evaluation of the capability of Elon Musk and the potential of Tesla?
Well, the recent events surrounding Elon have been pretty shocking. However, the focus is still on the car. I don't really believe that anybody in a Tesla showroom considering purchasing a Tesla is really thinking about what Elon is doing. They're thinking about if they like the car, and the car has a lot of appeal. I mean, the interest in the car is still very high. They have a long pipeline of people who want Model 3s. So I don't really know if it affects the key thing, which is the sale of the vehicles.
Max, is that the case? Or are there customers out there who might be questioning, is my car safe? Am I going to be able to buy another one of these in 3 years?
So two things. One is, I think the sort of legacy Tesla customer, the people who bought the Roadster, which was the super fast sports car, and the Model S, which was their sort of high-end sedan, those people aren't turned off by Elon Musk going on a podcast and using some, drugs. But I do think as this company tries to make, a quote-unquote mass market car, an electric Toyota Corolla or whatever, Toyota Corolla buyers, don't care about cool. They want a car that is safe and reliable. So I do think there's some long-term risk, if the company isn't able to get its sort of image under control. The other thing is, this is a situation where you have a lot of little cuts, and if they're able to get things turned around, if they have a good quarter, if Elon keeps things relatively buttoned up on Twitter for a while, I think this kind of dies down and maybe we go back to business as usual. But if there's another problem, say some kind of accident at the factory, or a driverless car situation, we've seen a couple of those before, or who knows what, that could kind of start to pile on and create a narrative that would be bad for Tesla.
That was Tiger's Financial Partners' Ivan Feinseth and Bloomberg Businessweek's Bex Chafkin. It's the end of an era at Alibaba, with founder and executive chairman Jack Ma this week announcing his plans to step away from day-to-day running of the company. He'll hand the reins over to CEO Daniel Zhang in exactly 12 months' time on his 55th birthday, but stay on board until 2020. EMQQ founder Kevin Carter joined us to share his thoughts on succession plans at Alibaba.
First of all, I don't think he's exiting the company. He's definitely exiting one particular role. He's doing it in a methodical way that's been talked about and broadcast. So it's new information, but it's not really news. I mean, he stepped down from the CEO role several years ago, and now he's making it more formal. The timeline for his handing over the chairmanship, but he handed over the CEO role many years ago, and I think it's more about changing his image to the philanthropist role that he's planning on taking on in the future, as well as being a teacher.
Selena, is there anything surprising about the way the plan has been laid out here?
This has been a long time coming. He's been talking about this for many years. He's always saying he wants to pass the baton to the younger generation. He wants to die on the beach, not in his office. And it's not a surprise that Daniel Zhang is the one who's going to be stepping up. He's much more low profile, low mannered, much quieter than Jack Ma, but he has been the CEO for nearly 3 years. He's executed extremely well. He's credited with really bringing Tmall to the forefront of the company, for spearheading Singles Day, for executing on this new retail strategy. So it doesn't really come as a surprise. I think the most surprising part is probably the timing of the announcement, even though investors and analysts have known for quite some time it was looming large.
Is it any surprise that it's Daniel Zhang taking that role and not Joe Tsai, the vice chair?
He is the executor, after all. He's not as high profile, but he was hired in 2007. He came on as a CFO at Taobao. He's really credited with making it a very established organization. Jack Ma has said that him leaving means that this company is no longer reliant on specific individuals or cults of personality, but it can rely on really the organizational structure. Jack Ma probably won't ever leave his role as being the public face of the company, but behind the scenes there have been many players that have been propping the company up for quite some time.
Take a listen to this interview. We actually sat down with Jack Ma just a few days before he made this announcement in an exclusive interview on Bloomberg Television. Take a listen to what he had to say about the company's future.
I don't think any problem with Alibaba will happen. I mean, our people, I fully confidence in my team and fully confidence in our structure, like the partner structure, which a lot of investors don't like. Hong Kong don't like, New York don't like. Oh, it's so perfect. It's the system which I think this is the contribution that I and my team built to this world. And people in the future will love it. Can make the company last long.
Hopefully we'll continue to get interviews with him, because the fire is always fun to watch. But Kevin, what is your view on the future of the company without him as involved?
Well, I think that was beautiful, by the way. He's already been gone. I mean, the fact is he's made it very clear that what's important to him is culture, handing the baton, empowering other people, and as you sort of alluded to, I think Daniel's considered more like, I saw a story earlier that called him Clark Kent versus Jack Ma being Superman. So I think the company's in great hands, and more importantly, the fundamental story here. You've got billions of consumers in China, in India, in Africa, all over the world that are getting their first computer, their first internet access, 5G coming soon, and a big deal.
Soon-ish.
Soon-ish. Well, yeah, yes, I don't have a projection exactly when someone in the U.S. will have access to this, but it sounds like it's soon enough to matter. But the point is, the fundamental story behind Alibaba, I mean, if you look at the revenue growth they had last quarter, 61%, this is a big story of all of the consumers in China and the rest of the world moving on up, wanting stuff, getting a computer, getting the internet, and doing it all on the phone. And so he set a great culture for the company. They've got a great direction, and I think they'll continue fundamentally to do quite well. The stock market will do what it's going to do.
What do you think are the biggest challenges that lie ahead for Alibaba, especially in the middle of a U.S.-China trade war?
Well, I think the stock's risk and problems have been related to the trade war. I think that if you look at the different parts of the emerging market and China economy and the stock market, the companies that are going to struggle with the trade war are going to be steel and chicken feed and tires and things like that. Of all the sectors that are going to be hurt by trade wars, this emerging market internet sector will be hurt the least, but it will certainly affect the stocks.
That was EMQQ founder Kevin Carter. Coming up, starting a new business is tough, but former eBay COO and Yahoo chairman Maynard Webb has successfully led several. Now he wants to share his expertise. We'll hear from him next. This is Bloomberg. eBay COO, LiveOps CEO, and Yahoo chairman. Maynard Webb is a 40-year veteran of the tech industry, and he continues to serve on the boards of Visa and Salesforce. And today, he's investing in the entrepreneurs of tomorrow through his Webb Investment Network. But it's not just about giving them funding, but advice. In his latest book, Dear Founder, Webb shares more than 80 letters delivering words of wisdom to anyone who wants to start a business.
It's way different. First of all, there's just not a boss that tells you what to do all day long. Today, we have to inspire people and motivate them and make sure that they can do all that they can do.
You talk in here about ego and how entrepreneurs can sometimes lose their way. How do you counsel entrepreneurs to make sure they don't get caught up in the wealth and the power and the arrogance, quite frankly, that can be Silicon Valley?
Well, I try to make sure we build values into a company from day one and teach how to be honest and transparent and humble. And the higher up you go in a company or in the world, the more you have an obligation to do better. And so I work really hard and try to select for founders that want coaching because it's not just our money. We care a lot about, you have seen our events. We have 90 affiliates that invest by my side, and we want to bring an army to go help a company get better. But it's not so fun to give somebody money that doesn't want to have help.
Well, and what's interesting about the way you invest is it's not just about giving them money. You also try to connect them with people that you think that they will be valuable based on your own network and the network that you've developed. What did you really want to accomplish here? I mean, do you think that founders aren't getting the advice they need, aren't getting straight talk?
Well, they might get straight talk, but I think what they aren't getting a lot is wisdom from the park bench where you've spent a lot of years making things happen, and it's a lonely job, and I don't have an agenda. I'm just here to help founders get better. And so my son came up with this idea based on a Medium post he had seen about a dad dying and writing letters at certain stages of his life, and we were like, well, this is cool. We give advice all day long, but there's 90 or 100 CEOs for everyone we go give advice to. Is there a way to codify this? And then we did it for the network first with a small deal, and the network said, you got to give this to the world because there's advice that helps a lot.
So let's talk about some of the founders who are in the news. If you were writing a letter that started with Dear Elon Musk, what would that letter say?
I would start it with, you're amazing, and you brought more innovation to the world than most people could ever dream about, and you need to keep being amazing, and you and your board should make sure that happens.
The media has been criticized for trivializing some of these headlines, and yet we're seeing him smoke marijuana in interviews. We're seeing him tweet nasty things. We're seeing him share what seem to be untruths with the New York Times. How do you control someone like that?
I think you have to get him some advice. And
what about his board?
His board should be stepping up to work with him to make sure that it can never be just about the person running the company. You actually have an entity that's behind you, and all the company and the employees and shareholders are counting on the board and him to do the right thing for them.
What about Dear Mark Zuckerberg? What would that letter say?
It would be, I think Mark has come a long way. I met him when he first started the company, and back then it was, can we even build anything that anybody cares about? And then, oh my God, we have to celebrate how far along they've come. But every year, every new launch, the bar gets higher for what you're obligated to do, and the more people are using your product, the more responsibility you have to make sure it's done well. And I think he knows that there's more to do. And I would encourage him to do that as quickly as he can.
You worked really closely with Ms. Marissa Mayer as the chair of Yahoo. You navigated some very complex issues. What were some of the learnings there?
She's amazing. I mean, honestly, I loved partnering with her. And then I think it became a friendship as it went on. But it was hard. And she never, ever, ever backed down from trying to make everything work. But we had lots of hurdles to get over, and thank God we got them. We got it to the finish line and returned good shareholder value, and Altaba continues to do well.
That was Webb Investments founder Maynard Webb. Coming up, manager turned Spotify executive Troy Carter is known for smoothing contentious industry relations with artists. Now he's decided to leave Spotify. We sit down with him for an extended interview next. This is Bloomberg. Cannabis stocks are heating up. The North American Marijuana Index has gained over 50% since mid-August, fueled by upcoming recreational pot sales in Canada and the growing market in the U.S. Bloomberg TV gets an inside look at the technology driving the rollout of retail sales in Massachusetts, the next state to start legal pot sales, and how it could become an anchor market for the multi-billion-dollar industry on the East Coast.
The next state in the U.S. to sell recreational marijuana is gearing up slowly. Pot sales are legal in Massachusetts as of July 1st, but by law it can't be sold until tested at a licensed lab. To certify products are free from mold and dangerous pesticides.
The biggest obstacle has been the labs not being licensed to be able to test it, and before anything can be sold, it's got to be tested.
And now it can. Marijuana testing lab CDX Analytics is one of two that won preliminary state approval. CEO Brian Strasnick runs the lab that has been testing medical marijuana since 2016.
We have about 13 or 14 clients in the medical marijuana space.
Clients like Netta send flower, concentrates, and edibles from their 100,000 square foot grow house to CDX for testing before selling to medical consumers at their dispensaries.
We're probably testing about 60 samples a day. We expect that to just go crazy once recreational comes on board. I would imagine that we'll either triple or quadruple our samples probably in the next year.
CDX Chief Science Officer Brianna Cassidy oversees testing in the lab.
Generally, a full profile test will take between 48 and 72 hours.
How labs test marijuana is key to their business plans. One technique uses a petri dish to show harmful organisms. CDX is betting millions on a DNA-based technique.
We're cracking the cells open and quantifying the DNA. We get a snapshot of what microorganisms at what ratios are present on the cannabis on the shelf.
Which technique works better is up for debate. In either case, the license to test will cultivate sales.
Certainly by the end of September, beginning of October, I think the dispensaries that are up and running now will start to be able to sell.
The dispensaries and labs still need to be inspected, and the state needs to roll out seed-to-sale software to monitor marijuana at all stages. Once underway, the market in Massachusetts is expected to hit $325 million this year and reach $1 billion by 2020.
Well, right now there's no profitability because it's been all money going out to get the infrastructure up and running. But I'm hoping that by the first quarter of 2019 we'll be showing a pretty significant profit.
Massachusetts is the 7th state to legalize sales of recreational marijuana and the first on the East Coast, where it could prompt neighbors, Maine, Vermont, New York, and New Jersey, to follow.
We have the format and the infrastructure in place to really be able to duplicate this all over the country. It's just the infancy.
And staying in Boston, Troy Carter first made a name for himself as manager to both Lady Gaga and John Legend. Today, he's one of the biggest names in music. As Spotify's global head of creator services, Carter is credited with repairing the company's relationship with artists. And through his own company, Atom Factory, he continues to work with star talent as well as investing and incubating technology. Emily Chang sat down with Carter on his last day at Spotify to talk about his exit and the future of Atom Factory and the music business. Take a listen.
You know what? We had a great time. It's been 2.5 years. I'm an entrepreneur by heart, just is in my blood. And I wanted to take on a challenge. And I felt like the music industry was taking a shift. Daniel just lives light years ahead of everybody else when it comes to, seeing what the future looks like. So being able to spend some real time with him and real time within the company, I think it did a lot for me in terms of understanding how companies scale. Being there to see the company go from, startup to, big privately held company to public company. But also just for me, I was excited about some of the more entrepreneurial opportunities that are, this sort of white space that exists now as well.
And what do you think is going to happen in terms of how the pie will be divvied up, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube? Is the pie going to keep getting bigger? Is one of them going to rise to the top and dominate?
I think Daniel's been clear on, it's not going to be a winner-take-all market, and just how the market is shaped. And a lot of it has to do with the different constituencies of consumers. So you have consumers who are never going to pay for music, whether it's they don't believe in paying for music, and more of the point is a lot of consumers can't afford to pay for music, so they're going to consume a certain type of way. And radio has always been an option there, and then you have people who are going to still buy CDs. You got people, who are vinyl enthusiasts. So you have all of these different types of consumers. And then also you have voice. So I think voice is going to develop a certain type of consumer. The car is going to have a certain type of consumer. You're going to have all different types. So I don't think it's winner take all by any means.
That was Troy Carter, CEO of Atom Factory. That does it for this edition of Best of Bloomberg Technology. We'll bring you all the latest in tech throughout the week. Tune in each day at 5 p.m. New York and 2 p.m. San Francisco. And Bloomberg Technology is also live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology and be sure to follow all of our global breaking news network at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg.